United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres received a traditional welcome in New Zealand recently as he started his first official visit. His visit comes just after the start of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, and he praised New Zealand for its solidarity after the March 15th Christchurch mosque attack that saw 50 people lose their lives. In a joint news conference, Guterres and New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern called for continued global support in combating extremist material on social media platforms. Guterres added that the leadership of New Zealand against climate change was vital for the Pacific region. He's visiting the Pacific region to speak to communities and draw attention to their concerns and fight against climate change.
But also to pay tribute to the extraordinary unity and to the message of solidarity that was given by the people and the government of New Zealand.
Of the people in the Pacific.
United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has called on countries to tax pollution and not people while on his official visit to New Zealand and the Pacific Islands. Speaking at a doorstop with New Zealand's Climate Change Minister James Shaw, Guterres said he wanted countries to shift taxes by increasing those on carbon while reducing taxation on jobs and salaries. Guterres added that the leadership of New Zealand in addressing concerns of those in agriculture and industries impacted by climate change was vital for the Pacific region and the global community.
Indeed, it's important to move taxes from...
United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has called on the youth of New Zealand to change global political will in regards to climate change. Speaking at the Auckland University of Technology, Guterres said it was essential for governments to stop subsidies to fossil fuels and for taxpayer money to be spent on what is good for the planet. Guterres added that the internet needed to be transformed as a force for good and was greeted by a traditional New Zealand haka by university students. He was visiting the Pacific region to speak to communities and draw attention to their concerns and fight against climate change.
Their responsibilities in the world, especially governments, are largely, with exceptions, and I would underline the very important progress that is being made in New Zealand, but in many decisive...
3 Greenpeace activists were hanging from ropes under the Sydney Harbour Bridge as part of a protest to demand that Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison take emergency action on climate change. Greenpeace Australia Pacific's Chief Executive David Ritter said the number one issue causing climate change was coal. Australian police said in a statement they'd arrested 10 people and were continuing with the operation after several protesters abseiled under the bridge. The operation included bomb disposal, rescue and air units. Security staff on the bridge raised the alarm. Police said there was no disruption to road traffic, trains or ferries. Climate change has been a contentious topic for Morrison's centre-right government ahead of the recent election. Victorian Amateur Football Association teams St Bernards and Old Melburnians were playing a club game when 2-year-old Pippa Biggs wandered onto the field. One of the players picked up Pippa and carried her over the boundary line. Pippa was eventually reunited with her father, who told Australian media that his daughter is known to be a bit cheeky and very active. Not just mothers and nurses should also be honoured, as they play an important role and give great help when doctors are under tremendous pressure. Recalling the time when she just came out of medical school, Malaysian Deputy Prime Minister Dr. Wan Azizah Wan Ismail said the support provided by nurses working with her at that time made her more confident to work. In her speech at the launch of the International Nurses Day 2019 celebration at the Malaysian Agro Exposition Park, Serdang, Dr. Wan Azizah also thanked the nurses for their contributions to the country and advised them to acquire more skills, focus on capacity building, as well as to have a work-life balance.
Nurses are health professionals closest to the community, caring for the community from womb to tomb. And nurses see patients from all backgrounds, race, religion, gender, socio-economic backgrounds, and from all stages of life. Your interactions with them are crucial, and perhaps it will not be exaggerating to say can sometimes be a life-changing experience for them.
International Nurses Day, which is celebrated around the world on the 12th of May every year, is also the birthday of Florence Nightingale, who is considered as the founder of temporary nursing. The theme for this year's celebration is Nurses, a Voice to Lead, Health for All, which encourages nurses to make their voices heard in influencing health policy planning. The issue of food wastage and leftovers, which grows increasingly serious, especially during the month of Ramadan, has inspired a young man to develop an application to tackle the matter. O Free Food is the first online application in Malaysia, which enables you to share and request for food from various individuals for free, in line with their slogan, which is Get Any Food for Free. The founder, Irwan Hisham, said through a few simple steps, users can upload photos of the food they wish to give away, along with some information, and list it on the app. Anyone looking for a free meal merely needs to type in their desired search on the app and tap on the request button. Irwan Hisham, the founder of O Free Food, says to date almost 1,000 people have gotten free food. O Free Food also attracted interest from neighbouring countries such as Singapore and Indonesia, who want to develop similar applications in their respective countries. The application, which was developed with the help of several individuals, cost over 200,000 Malaysian ringgit so far. Hotels in Malaysia have been encouraged to participate in the Food Bank program. The move is to collect and distribute food for the needy, as well as reduce food wastage, especially during Ramadan. Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs Minister Saifuddin Nasution Ismail said food wastage increased to more than 15,000 metric tons during the fasting month. He said such a wastage comes through the hosting of buka puasa or break-fast events. He said the ministry does not regulate these. However, hotels are encouraged to participate in the Food Bank program to distribute their leftover foods through their own initiative. Saifuddin said this to reporters after launching the Seminar Food Bank Malaysia program in Putrajaya. The program, which was introduced last year, aids the poor and the underprivileged to receive food. It has currently benefited some 150,000, including institutes of higher learning students. There are about 430 contributors, including several hotels, which have joined the Food Bank program. Japan's Imperial Household Agency has selected 2 prefectures to harvest sacred rice for a ritual in the autumn to mark the enthronement of Emperor Naruhito. Senior agency officials attended the Saiden Tente Noji ritual to choose the locations for growing the rice that will be used for the Daijosai, or Great Thanksgiving ceremony. On October 22nd, the new emperor will announce his enthronement and is celebrated. This will be followed by a parade. On the same day, a court banquet will be held at the palace. In November, the Daijosai, or Great Thanksgiving ceremony, will take place. The selection ritual began in the sanctuary at the Imperial Palace. The chief ritualist, or Shotenchiko, carried a box into the area in front of the sanctuary. He used a tool to make a fire to heat a turtle shell. Based on cracks that appeared on the shell, one prefecture was chosen as the Yuki, or Eastern region, and another as the Suki, or Western region. The ceremony ends after 40 minutes. Tochigi Prefecture in eastern Japan and Kyoto Prefecture in western Japan were chosen. The Grand Steward of the Imperial Household Agency, Shinichiro Yamamoto, informed the emperor of the results. The Hanoi Urban Environment Company has been cooperating with the Hoan Kim District People's Committee in Hanoi to implement a pilot program installing cameras to film people littering on the pedestrian mall around the Old Quarter and Hoan Kim Lake. The pilot program has generated positive results. On April 26, a camera filmed a woman throwing garbage on Hangai Street. The day after, some people were caught throwing garbage in front of their house. Many places look like garbage dumps. Their activities were filmed by the Hanoi Urban Environment Company's cameras. These video recordings were sent to the local authorities. According to the government's decree number 155 on littering, those who throw domestic garbage away in public places will be fined from between $230 to $320. The program has received positive feedback from many people. One resident in Hanoi said the streets were now very clean. Many places in Hanoi are flooded with garbage and plastic bags. The Hoan Kim District People's Committee plans to carry out the program in many districts of Hanoi and install more anti-littering signs along main roads. Hand embroidery is one of the traditional art forms from ancient times in Hu City. Over the centuries, traditional hand embroidery art has reached new heights of technology as well as art. Using traditional materials, hand embroidery has combined with many other art forms, creating breakthroughs for this art form. Among them, thread sculptures have become an impressive highlight of this handicraft. In the embroidery room at the XQ Embroidery Art Museum in Huo, artisans are attentive to their work. With their passion and focus on each work, they're combining many different forms to convey the highest aspiration for life. These artworks are to honor the beauty of Vietnamese women. Most of the embroidery works are double-sided, still life, landscapes or portraits. With more than 20 years of experience in thread sculpture, Hong is the only artisan at the XQ Embroidery Art Museum to perform this difficult technique. Also a hand-embroidered work, the petals the artists are weaving are not just on a flat surface like ordinary embroidery work. Each work requires meticulousness from artisans. Colors must also be used dexterously. The artisans have to sculpture the insect to look like a real one. With the continuous development of technology in art, hand embroidery has developed to a new level. It can be said the formation of embroidery sculpture has gained pride of place in the traditional embroidery art of Hue. China is going to host the first conference on Dialogue of Asian Civilizations, CDAC, as a platform to unite Asia and the world and to connect the hearts of different peoples, according to a commentary published on the website of China Radio International CRI under the China Media Group CMG. As this year marks the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China, the country is hosting multiple diplomatic events to deepen diplomatic ties with the world. President Xi Jinping, who will deliver the inaugural address to the conference, where he is likely to present new vistas for Asian countries to enhance pragmatic cooperation with China in building an Asian community of a shared future. It's a matter of pride for Asian communities that time-honored Asian civilizations are the oldest civilizations in the world, spanning a period of more than 5,000 years, witnessing the fusion of customs and traditions which are reflected in their varied cultures, languages, beliefs, and heritage. Asian countries were the first to advocate the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence at the world-famous Bandung Conference in Indonesia in April 1955. And both China and India played an important role in the conference's success. The conference was an important step towards building the non-aligned movement during the height of the Cold War. China's diplomacy is based around peace, development, and win-win global cooperation. China, as the biggest developing country and the second largest economy in the world, is inviting countries around the world to join in its efforts to build a community with a shared future for mankind. As such, Asian countries must seize the opportunity at the CDAC, as its theme is connected to the development of Asian nations. Hundreds flock to the Chung Chau Bun Festival and the popular children's parade and bun scrambling races. There's always humour mixed with political satire in Chung Chau's popular floating parade. This float took aim at the MTR and this year's train crash. With the island being hit by dengue fever last year, this little health officer sprayed water instead of pesticides to cool down from the heat. Other than both sides of the lane, balconies are also packed with revellers hoping to take a look at the parade. Tradition has it that having a bun will bring peace to your family, as the Chinese characters on the buns suggest. With an estimated 60,000 people flocking to the island, the ferry operator doubled its services by providing 6 ferries bound for Chung Chau per hour during the day. Hundreds of jewelry lovers, exhibitors and buyers from around the world gathered in Shanghai for the recent annual International Gems and Jewelry Trade Fair. This was the second year Sisi Jewelry Art took part in the fair. The brand brought a collection of brooches, each piece combined with eaglewood and diamonds. Stella Huang, the designer, said most people use eaglewood for medicine, Buddha beads or furniture, but no one has ever connected eaglewood and diamonds. On the other side of the pavilion, more than 700 Shanghai-style jade sculptures were on display. The designer was up for the Yulong Award, judged by the Gems and Jade Trade Association of Shanghai. These jade sculptures include plum blossoms, orchids, bamboo and chrysanthemums, 4 plants that represent lofty, elegant, faithful and noble characters in Chinese. An industry survey shows Chinese consumers tend to buy jewelry to celebrate occasions such as birthdays, festivals and weddings. Now they also pay attention to color, purity and craftsmanship of the jewelry. The executive director of the United Nations World Food Programme, WFP, David Beasley, recently discussed food insecurity in North Korea with South Korean President Moon Jae-in. Beasley said he was concerned about the severity of the crisis and emphasized the need for emergency humanitarian aid, the Blue House said, adding that Moon expressed sympathy. 4 in 10 North Koreans are chronically short of food, and further cuts to already minimal rations are expected after the worst harvest in a decade, the United Nations said earlier this month. North Korea has for years relied on regular supplies of UN food aid. Researchers from the National Autonomous University of Mexico, UNAM, in Mexico City, has called for more to be done to fight an unwelcome visitor that continues to sail into Mexican beaches. Huge rafts of seaweed. They called for a comprehensive strategy to combat the seaweed, called sargassum, adding that very little was known about the phenomenon. The seaweed, which has swept into the region, in part as a result of changing weather conditions, turning many once postcard-perfect beaches a dull pond scum brown, as it decomposes and releases a rotten egg stench, has repeated itself across the Caribbean. It has created havoc for the tourism-dependent economies and disrupted other industries such as fisheries, as fishermen struggle to navigate seaweed-choked waters. The seaweed is an ochre-coloured floating algae with small air-filled bladders that keep it afloat. Although some sargassum washes up naturally on beaches in the region, researchers and other observers say that in 2011, the Caribbean began to see a huge influx of the weed washing up on the region's beaches. The trend has continued with a spike in 2014 and again in 2015.